Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. And this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. So today's show is the day after this election that we all just experienced, and I'm imagining there's a few people that may be very happy with the results, and I'm guessing a whole bunch of you that are feeling somewhat upset, uncomfortable, wondering how this happened, and you may want to feel like you want to talk about that a bit. As you know, the show is not political, and so I'm not going to entertain why you think this might be the end of the world, and you know how you're feeling about the president-elect who was our former president, or why you think anybody lost, and so forth. But what I do want to spend some time talking about, if you're at all interested, is what might you say to anyone who is feeling upset? In other words, this show is all about trying to help people be emotionally intelligent, try to be smarter about how they manage their own emotions and how they manage the emotions of others. Now, I'm guessing that in your household, you probably have some people that might be upset with what's happened. And do you have any thoughts about anything that you might say that might be comforting? And I don't want people calling in and saying, no, I have no idea what to say to comfort anyone about what just happened. But if you do have some thoughts, some ideas about how to make this right for people, just to wake up today, tomorrow, the next day, and do the best we can with whatever we've got. I mean, there used to be, when I was growing up, the sense that when a new president got elected, even if it wasn't your choice, the way I remember growing up, it was, hey, this might not be the person that I would have picked. This may not be the person I think is going to run the country and handle the challenges we face in the right way. But at the same time, they're my president now. This is my country. And hopefully they're going to try and do things that bring us together and do things to support seniors and veterans and people with limited abilities, or people that are hurt or diseased or suffering in some way. They're going to help somehow raise people up and make life better. And while we don't know for sure what's going to happen, none of us do really, there used to be sort of what they call a honeymoon for a few months. And the only time I remember that didn't really happen was 2016 when President Trump came into office. And I'm sure there'll be people that say, well, that's because, and you have reasons why it didn't happen. But in any case, I hope, because this is our country. This is my country, our country. And I want, everything to be as good as it can be for everybody here. Bar none, for everyone. So I hope that what comes next is that we have a chance to really do the right thing in terms of at least just trying to make it work. So that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping happens here. And I want to say that I think there's a lot of things that that you can do for others to take care of them. I've been interested in this idea of caretaking for a while, and in some ways we have a whole, really a lot of people that are hurting this morning and today, and hurting beyond whatever normal pains they might wake up with every day anyway. And so that's why the show, in a sense, is also about caretaking. And I want to talk a little bit about caretaking today. It's something that I've just gotten involved with somewhat for a few reasons. In my own household, some family members have some things going on that have caused me to want to reach deep inside myself and do whatever I can to make life as good as possible for them. And it's challenging. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to say, hey, I'm going to give up my personal time, my personal space, what I had in mind that I wanted to do this day, this week, this month, and think about, well, what about the other people in my life that I love, that I care about? What do they need? And are they in real need right now such that I want to put my own personal needs aside? And for how long? And is that okay? And how do I deal with me emotionally? And how do if you're on the care needing end of it, how do you deal with being cared for when you've been independent all your life? Maybe when you were a little infant, not so much. But over time, you were really feeling like you had this figured out. And so I think it's really important to think about, we've got a whole bunch of people in our country right now. Quite a few people are going to be very happy with the outcome because a lot of people voted for President Trump. But at the same time, I know in Connecticut in particular, where this particular radio station operates from, and where we have a lot of listeners, and some in Long Island and some in Massachusetts, and the idea that there's people hurting, is there something we can do to somehow make life a bit better for them? If we think of ourselves as caretakers of all those we love and care about, and we know that people are hurting, are there things that we might do that might make that better? So again, the show's the emotion roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. The number to call is 203-336-9756. I look forward to talking to you, and I hope that you've got some good ideas. Again, I'm not looking for anybody to call in and say, oh, the injustice, or oh, the world is ending. This is not that kind of show. So, but I am conscious of the fact that a lot of people are emotionally upset today. And so I thought I'd at least offer the opportunity for people, if they wanted to call in and say what they think they might be able to do for people they care about to make life better somehow for them. Is there something you think would work? And if you want to share that, I'm sure a lot of people are looking for good ideas about that right now. So if you've got anything at all that you think might help, this is a community show. Whoever's listening, thank you so much for tuning in. If all of you are regular listeners, I know that a lot of you have told me how much you like the show. I hope you like this topic too. I know it's hard. I know people want to reel when they're angry, when it's upset, when things don't go your way. I'm thinking of a lot of Yankees fans might feel that way too, because they came close in the World Series, and it was so hard the way it ended for them. I feel bad for the Yankees, even though I grew up in Boston all my life, but I don't hate the Yankees fans like I did when I was a kid growing up. So I'm sorry that you had to end the way you did, but you had a great season. So be thankful for that, I guess. So again, if you want to call in, the number is 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute, because I know a lot of you are feeling a lot of things. What I don't know is, does anybody have any good ideas about what you might say or do to help others to feel like, hey, life's going to go on. Let's see if we can help make this better, and let's see if we can make it better for each other somehow. And so I'm hoping that there's at least some of you with some good ideas around that, and you're okay giving me a call. So again, 203-336-9756. The show's about dealing with emotional challenges. If you're new to the show, if you've got something on your mind that you're struggling with emotionally, the show is designed to teach the person who calls, if you call, to teach you how to use this concept I call an emotion roadmap, the emotion roadmap, to help you deal with the feelings you have and help to change whatever feelings you might have to feelings that are more helpful, more supportive, more positive, more empathic, more targeted to getting you the success you need, as opposed to where you might be stuck right now. And lots of people call in about situations at work, in their communities, certainly in their home lives. Lots of people have issues with parents with children, parents, couples with each other, partners. There's a lot of places where people are struggling for multiple reasons. And the emotion roadmap is sort of this idea of using a targeted process to be smarter about how you deal with your emotions. It's useful to remember this fact, and that is that our emotions are designed as part of our evolutionary system to protect us. And to think about that for a minute, our emotions are designed to protect us. So often, whatever we are feeling is there to protect us. Now, sometimes those feelings, while designed to protect us, are operating based on some beliefs that we may have had when we were children that are no longer relevant. Fears of being left out, fears of being disrespected, fears of being yelled at, lots of things that maybe were tougher to deal with when we were children. Maybe if they happened a lot to us, they stay in our consciousness so that when we become adults, even the slightest hint of being disrespected or being yelled at, sends shudders down our spine because we feel like it's something from my past and it scares me, it frightens me, it makes me want to either run, fight or flight, or fight with it. So, that's how feelings tend to operate. So as I learned about the world of emotional intelligence, the new science that emerged from my colleagues and friends, Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer, I got to work with the two of them to help them to take what they discovered about emotional intelligence abilities and they asked me to design a tool, a methodology, a process somehow that would take what they were discovering about this new science of emotional intelligence and make it useful. And that's where I conceived this emotion roadmap. And the concept is based on the idea that we're always feeling something. Obviously, we know when we're feeling really upset, like this morning, many people may be feeling, as I mentioned a moment ago. But we always are feeling something. We may not always know that we're feeling something because it's kind of like breathing. Until somebody says, pay attention to your breathing, you're not really thinking about breathing. You just are breathing. And that's true about our feelings. So when your feelings are labored or intense, when you're feeling so upset about something that just happened, perhaps the election, you're elated because of the election. On the other side, there are people in Connecticut, quite a few actually, who are probably feeling pretty good this morning about the election. So it's not like it's that one person's set of feelings is right and another's wrong. It's our feelings. The question for each of us is going forward into the day, how are our feelings impacting the way we think? How are our feelings impacting what we do? And if we're fine with what we're thinking and doing, no reason to be reflective necessarily. But if we feel like, geez, I don't want to be this angry. I don't want to be this upset. We live in a democracy. People voted. That's whatever happened, happened. And I'll deal with it, just like I would expected the other people on the other side to deal with it if my candidate had won. But how do you get to feel like that when it's so intense? The upset that you're feeling, the disappointment that you're feeling, the betrayal even that you might be feeling. So as you're going through all of that, I ask myself often in my life and with the people I work with, whether it's family I'm just helping because I love them and care about them and they've asked for some help, or it's people that I coach in the workplace as a leadership coach, when I'm working with them and I see feelings that are emerging, they're very powerful and having a real big impact. And it seems as though the impact is not really conducive to them living fruitful lives. The feelings are actually in the way of being productive or being thoughtful or being empathic and compassionate. When I see that, I think, whatever you're feeling is useful to understand why you feel it. But perhaps there's something better, more ideal to feel, given the circumstances. Let's talk about it. Let's get a little history about what's going on. Who's involved? Is it just you? Is it just internal? Or is it something that has to do with somebody else that you're involved with somehow? Because sometimes the feelings that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, are just internal. There's nobody else involved. It's just you. Should I take this other job? Should I quit because of what was said to me? Should I move to another state? Should I go on an adventure? Should I take this vacation or that vacation? And who do I bring with me? And what if the person I'm partners with can't go where I want to go? What then? That's when you're dealing with more than one. But lots of times, some of the things you deal with, again, are just internal. But when it is external, I ask you, okay, so it's you, and who else is really key? If I'm a motivational speaker and I'm standing in front of an audience and I like this group of people I'm working with and I want to be invited back, and I know I've got to reach people in order to be invited back, I don't have to reach the entire audience, I say to myself. I say, who's key in the audience? Who is it that makes the decisions about whether or not what I bring is what they need? How do I communicate effectively with them? I want to reach everybody, but I especially want to reach the people that are the decision makers on a situation like that, for instance. Anyway, so my point is that feelings are always informative, but they're not always helpful. And sometimes they're actually even obstacles. And so if I want to change feelings, I ask myself, what would be more ideal to feel? And if I can think of a feeling that's more ideal and actually compelling and it's powerful and inspiring, and I want to feel that other feeling, the process called the emotion roadmap then asks you, so if you're feeling upset and you want to feel confident and calm, what possible strategies might get you from what you are feeling to what you want to feel? And if you're trying to be helpful to somebody else and they're upset and you want them to at least feel calm, or at least allow them to vent and to then move past the anger and the upset and move into a position where, okay, I've vented, I've got that outside of me, and now I just want to live my day. What was I going to do today? How do I approach my day in a way where I feel healthy and composed and calm and to get the things done that I need to get done today? How do I do that? So that's the roadmap. I think it would apply here to the circumstance around the election. That's why I'm suggesting it. But I also, again, I want to talk about caretaking as well today. So let me just go ahead and ask you to call if you've got some ideas about how you might be helpful to somebody else, or if you've got something else you want to ask me about that has to do with work, with home, or with your community. And for those of you who don't know, again, I'm Chuck Wolf. This is the Emotion Roadmap. The show is on the air the first and second Wednesdays of the month on WPKN. It's on 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, and it's located in downtown Bridgeport, and that's where our studio is based. And we reach out to places not only locally but around the world, because we have listeners that have come from this area that know our station, that listen regularly to PKN because it's such a fantastic award-winning station, mostly for the music, I have to say. But I know there's people outside, too, that like to listen to a lot of the talk shows, including my own. And I'm very thankful for all of you who do know the show. If you don't know the show, again, the show is about helping you deal with emotional challenges. And I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 noon to about 12:55. At 12:55, we do a public broadcast. So if you can and you're able and you've got something that you think is worth sharing, again, give me a call at 203-336-9756. So I just wanted to check, make sure the phones are working. The phones are working. So again, 203-336-9756. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit then about caregiving. I've mentioned this before on the show, but this is new. And the idea of caregiving has come to mind because there's a certain kinds of diseases that cause people to lose some of their abilities. And some people get these diseases when they're very young, some people when they're middle-aged, some people when they're older. In any case, so that's entered our household, my household, where my wife and I live. And there's been some cause for doing some additional caregiving on my part that I wasn't expected to do in the early years, part of our marriage. But I'm doing a little bit of it now. My wife is a very independent person, and she does a lot of the caregiving for me, just as a natural part of our being together. So I don't want to say that I'm doing lots of caregiving, but we're entering a stage which is a little different, where I'm being asked to be more responsible and to take some ownership of this. And with one of the situations that she's facing, one of the challenges she's facing, there was a group that meets regularly across the state, and they had a speaker come to talk about this idea of caregiving, right? Because people who get this disease, as it continues to get worse and the symptoms get harder to deal with, create the need for more caregiving. And this woman is named Joan Monum, is a faculty member at Yale School of Public Health, and she was coming to talk to this group about the emotions in caregiving. And so those of you who know my show know that I spend a lot of time thinking about emotions, emotional intelligence, my emotion roadmap, etc. And so I was intrigued. I said to my wife, Barbara, I said, hey, how about if I go with you to this meeting? Because occasionally I'll go with her to some of these meetings, which are support groups, really, where they present information about new ideas, new research, some of the follow-up to studies that are being done that they already know about, but what some of the results are. And they have a neurologist that supports this group, and a woman that's very, very effective and excellent at hosting these things as a volunteer. And they do it in different parts of the state so that people don't have to drive that far to at least attend a few sessions. So anyway, I went to this one which had this speaker from Yale, and she was great. I thought she had a lot of really good information to share. But I also, since again, a number of people know that I've worked with a bunch of people at Yale University on emotional intelligence. And so I went up to her and I talked to her about the people I knew and asked her if she'd worked with them, and told her a little bit about the work I was doing with the emotion roadmap. And she was intrigued. So, and I've mentioned this before on the radio, that she asked me, would I consider doing a peer-reviewed study with her. Peer-reviewed meaning that a really excellent research article to prove the effectiveness of the emotion roadmap. She asked me if I ever had anybody do any quantitative or qualitative studies. This is a little researchy. I don't mean to go there, other than to say, being reviewed in a journal that's highly respected that says, hey, we set up an experimental procedure to test whether the emotion roadmap actually helps in the world of caregiving. And so she said, would you be interested in that? Or do you have other studies that show its efficacy, its ability to actually help make a difference? And I said, I actually don't have any studies like that. I have thousands of anecdotes and lots of people that if you call and ask them, will tell you about amazing things that have occurred because they learned how to use this emotion roadmap and make it part of their lives. In fact, a number of you that listen to this show have called in, and when you've reached me, have told me about, some of the things that have been really helpful to you, which again, I'm really appreciative when I hear that. That's really nice to hear. And so she talked to me about doing an experiment together. And so actually tomorrow, I'm supposed to get a timeline from her, because we've been working with a couple of interns that she has from, I believe one's from Singapore and one's from Thailand, two different young women who have come over to go to Yale for the year and be, I guess, interns for Joan in her faculty role. And they are doing this idea of doing an experimental study. So I hope to see that tomorrow. Maybe I'll talk about that next week if it all comes to pass and seems like it's going to work. But in the meantime, that part I talked about before. But in the meantime, this group that where my wife goes regularly was really, I guess, impressed. The woman who runs this was impressed with the questions I had about emotions and caregiving. When Joan was there, I asked a few questions. I didn't ask a lot, but this woman thought I seemed to have some expertise that maybe was worth sharing with the group. And I thought, okay. And she said, would you be willing to write an article? Oh, got a caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who's calling, please?
Yes, my name is Gary.
Hi, Gary. How you doing?
I don't know how to word this, but I'll do my best to explain myself. It's a beautiful day, and I can accept that. But I have this tendency sometimes to revisit something from my past, and I can't put a finger on it. But there's a sense of void inside of me. And I've been through therapy. I've been in a codependency group, which I realized that I had belonged. And evidently something came up within the past month or two where I felt like a rock was removed. And some of these old things have shown up again. I returned back to counseling roughly about 2 weeks ago, and my counselor had moved on, so I have somebody new.
Uh-huh.
And I feel as if the new person that was assigned to me is book smart, but not enough to. I want somebody maybe a little bit more of who's been seasoned. But I think what I'm trying to say here is I think there's a sense of vulnerability in me right now, and I'm looking outside of myself, and I'm trying to figure out what is it something to do with I'm reaching a certain age, which is 70 this year.
Okay.
Am I looking at my health? I've known this other woman for 18 years that I met in the rooms years ago. We were friends, but I'm questioning whether now I'm having different feelings towards her. So I'm in a confused state. I'm trying to put a finger on it, and I know it's not fix it up at all, but I'm trying to understand it a little bit better so I can reach out and kind of put it at bay if I can and work on it. But it's draining. I'm not on any medication, so that's kind of an overview. If I seem like it's a little bit scattered, I apologize for that.
No, I think I mean, again, it's hard to say something that's been going on for you for a really, really long time and be concise about it. But I think you did actually a nice job. So I think let me play it back to you, at least what I heard. Okay, Gary?
Go ahead.
So you feel like there's a void or something that's come up from your past that seems like it's causing you some vulnerability. And in the past, you've gotten some counseling, and I guess you weren't going to counseling. So this has been okay for a period of time, or at least livable. And now all of a sudden it feels unhealthy again. So you've returned to counseling, and the counselor who had helped you in the past, though, isn't there right now. And so a new counselor who you've met doesn't seem to be communicating to you in the way that says, I get you. I know a lot about a lot of things. She seems really smart to you, but she doesn't seem to be connecting with you emotionally. And you're looking to see if there's something else. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's about it. And what got me into codependency was because, people, places, and things. I had a tendency to create relationships as if I lose myself, my own self-esteem, my own self, by caretaking. You were mentioning about caretaking.
Right.
I would try to put all the fires out. Or I would say, well, listen, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll get your computer, wait a minute, I'll do this, look for you. But then I have a tendency to forget about me, and that resembles some of the places where I was. So I'm trying to say to myself, because of this so-called person that I've known for years, am I getting mixed feelings with her? And I'm going to use another phrase here. Somebody brought it up to me yesterday, a friend of mine. He says, maybe your inner child is reaching out and needs attention. I don't want to go outside of myself, but I feel as if all of a sudden I'm yearning for instance, I'll use this particular woman. I didn't see her call today, and I did mention to her when I was walking in a park, just kind of getting exercise. I says, I'm starting to wonder. I says, I enjoy your company. I enjoy being with you. And I'm not saying I love you, but I'm just saying I look forward to being with you. It's very hard for me to express that because I've always had a wall not wanting to feel the hurt. So the person's response was very, very quiet. Didn't say yes, no, or anything, but I showed a vulnerability of myself, but not expressing saying that I love you per se. But I put myself out there, and I've always been cautious and not to have that feeling of somebody pull out the rug from under me. So I know I seem rather scattered, but I'm trying to word it as best as I can with you.
Sure. So there's a few different moving parts here. One is a relationship with the woman that it sounds like maybe triggering some of this. There may be a piece of that. Turning 70 is sort of a milestone every 10 years. I think we think of kind of being a bit reflective, not all the time, but many times people on a 10-year birth date somehow start to think about what's going on for me? What am I missing? Am I doing what I should be doing? Should I be doing something? A lot of those questions show up around anniversaries like that. They can show up other times, but it's pretty common around anytime we celebrate a 70 or 60 or whatever birthday. But
right.
the way this works, Gary, just so you know how I approach this is, let's just talk about a part of it, which is this feeling that shows up, that is this void, this vulnerability that you might be trying to fill with the woman, but you're not really sure because it feels like maybe it's something to do with childhood. You're in a child. And I mentioned something about that a moment ago, too. So might have triggered the phone call for you. But what I'd like to ask you is, it sounds like for a period of time, what you were feeling about this was under control. Does that sound right?
Under control. Yeah. And may I bring something into focus?
Sure.
What triggered me?
Yeah.
I was supposed to take this individual to some event. And because no established time was made, I showed up at their house. And they said, well, I'm not going to go because you didn't tell me you're going to take that long. So I just hurriedly left. But I felt like, it was no established time. The next day I called, but the person was in the library. And I began to tell you, don't take me for granted. I'm there for you. We both didn't do that. So when the next day I was at an event somewhere, and a text came in. He says, go find somebody else to go with. I think we need time away from each other. All of a sudden, I felt the feelings I haven't felt in a long time, as if, oh, my God, my bottom dropped out. So when I called the next day, something came over me on the highway, and I began to cry while I was on the phone with her. And I said, I feel the sense of I don't want closure. I don't want to feel I've experienced that from my upbringing because there was always something where it wasn't. I know I have an idea intelligently, emotionally it can get you. And I said, but I don't want to feel this thing where I'm not going to communicate with you any longer. In other words, one and done. And I realized while I was crying on the phone when I was on the phone with her, I said, well, I didn't tell you that. I realized I better see what's going on here. And I reestablished myself going back to counseling. It showed up 2 months ago. So when you say under control, I was just going through the motion all this time. And then I thought something was put to rest. And lo and behold, the rock was removed and there was Pandora's box. So wait a minute, it's unresolved issues maybe. But am I making myself clear? I don't know. I may be a little bit.
No, I think you're fine. So what I'm thinking about, Gary, and this is part of the way I use this concept I call a roadmap, is to get you to a better place, a better feeling. One of the things I want to ask is, when you did talk to the counselor that you had the relationship with in the past, was there anything that person said or did that helped you to get to a better feeling state?
I'll be frank with you. He in a sense seemed to know me, like he had experienced what I've experienced, and he introduced me to the 12-step CODA group. And then I found out, wait a minute, and I mean this in a laughter way. I said to him, I raised my hand my first meeting, and I said, my God, it seems like my mom had other people out of wedlock because her story was so similar to mine. So I said, well, I belong. As of today, for my research last night, very far and few in between of those meetings anymore. So I'm willing to do the work It's just that kind of where I'm at. I found out what my problem was, and I'm questioning maybe it's not being brought up again where I'm losing myself, and I'm trying to look to somebody else to fulfill my need.
So a couple things. This process that you went to isn't an available option at this time. Did I understand that correctly?
Right. There's like maybe 2, maybe 3 meetings in the whole state. At one time there was many, maybe double digits.
Okay, so an avenue that worked in the past isn't really open anymore. At least not something that would be easy to do. This is something that would really challenge you to get to those things.
Exactly.
By the way, it might be worth going back once or twice just to rekindle what those felt like. You know, because you might need a bit of a nudge and an assist here, and attending a meeting, even if it's a long distance. I wouldn't make it a regular thing, but you might find just that's a helpful way to get your mind back in a better place. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Okay. Right. And then the next thing I think in terms of trying to be helpful is you've got a therapist or a counselor that you're going to, and it doesn't feel right to you. I'd tell them up front, it doesn't feel right to me. And if the person gets defensive or whatever, you've got the wrong person. If the person says, okay, let me try and be more in touch with you. Let's see if we can make this work. And it gets better, great. But if it doesn't, then find somebody else, Gary. I wouldn't. You don't have to stick with them.
It's funny you should say that, and I don't mean to talk over you, but I've been thinking about it because I'm on the road, and I'm thinking to myself that maybe if I'm not getting what I can out of it, to look elsewhere, you know?
Well, again, you had something that worked for you. Here's something that I think people don't recognize. If you've ended a relationship with a counselor that you really felt like they knew you, it's going to be really hard for any new counselor to step into that place. Does that make sense?
No, I do. I understand what you're saying.
So I wouldn't walk away. I would allow the person to understand how you're feeling.
Right.
Explain what you've explained to me, and then see how they deal with it. And it might help you and that person make a better connection. And if it really doesn't, if it's pretty clear at the end of that hour that that's not right, say, thank you very much. I appreciate you trying. I'm going to go in another direction.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, if I may. The individual that I've known for a number of years, all of a sudden things have become a little strange, which I never had before with her. I'm wondering, I'm concerned that I never had these kind of thoughts about her in the past. That's why I needed to say what I did that time, because I felt that's what was going on, but not necessarily the word of love, but wanting to be more involved with that person. But I understand that just because I may want that, they may not want that, and that's why they became very quiet. And my expectations could really hurt me. My expectation of a phone call, I just because I if it doesn't come, then they're not thinking of me. That's where I have to look at myself and realize just because. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah. So I wanted to separate the thing. So first, just for yourself, you feel okay about what we talked about on that part, right?
No. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. Second, let me finish with that. Just one other thing to say to you about it, because if you can, even after you go to that meeting, that one other meeting, or you could just remember what those meetings felt like and the messaging that you walked away. That what I find is so powerful in this idea of being smarter about how we deal with our own emotions and others is what we're saying to ourselves. And if you can remember some of the messaging that you walked out of those group meetings, like, hey, I'm not alone here. There's a lot of people. It's like you came from my mother somehow. You know, it's because we all had so many similar experiences. So you're not alone. You got a message that made it okay. And if you can just kind of like catch yourself starting to feel this void and change the narrative a bit so that, it's like for me, humor is a really powerful method for dealing with raw, angry, upset, difficult emotions. And if I can think of a time, something that triggers me, like this is triggering you, is how I hear it, and say, welcome back, old friend. I know what your game is, and I don't want to play today.
Yep.
I don't want to play today, and I just want to let you go. I understand that you come around every once in a while when I'm feeling a little insecure or something's not quite right for me. And nice to see you again, but you need to go away now. And just kind of smile to yourself and let it. I don't know if that's helpful, but sometimes it is.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because I normally a pretty bubbly guy and I'm humorous, and I noticed the humor hasn't been there lately, and I've seen a change. And thanks for putting that in perspective because about revisiting that person because that's who I am mostly. Well,
there you go. So that should help a bit. And then let me talk a little bit about the woman. And the woman piece is by the way, again, there's probably groups for this too. There's a lot of people that have relationships that are friendships that feel comfortable. And then one of the partners in that relationship feels like I want to move it to another level. And the other partner gets scared because we don't know her story, right?
No.
We don't know what's going on for her.
Well, I do. Well, I be perfectly frank, I do because they've been hurt and scarred, and I know her past, and she is very defensive about letting something in. So I kind of know that, but I'm going to let you speak. Sorry.
That's okay, but you make a good point. So this is scaring the crap out of her is what's happening.
Possibly. That's why there was no reply when I told her what I didn't say love, but I said I want to be around with you because I enjoy not to just go to an event, but I enjoy being with you to enjoy an event. So I was perfectly frank, and I was honest. Yeah.
So I think your need to be honest is your need.
Okay.
It's not her need. And I think if you can step back from the need to push this further and just be what you were, which was friends. And if at some point she feels comfortable enough to reach out to you feeling this way, then I would act on these feelings you're having. Otherwise, I would just enjoy the friendship and realize that, hey, I might want more, but she's scared of anything more than this, and I don't want to lose her, so screw it. I'm not going to push her at all ever again, unless she somehow seems to reach out to me, at which point I'll embrace it. But for the time being, I love being with this person. I'm just going to enjoy her. I'm not going to feel the need to talk about my emotions because that scares the crap out of her and is only going to push her away. And if I want to ruin it, I'll do that. If I'm smart about how I'm feeling emotionally and just say, hey, I get it. I want this to be more. But at the moment, that doesn't work for her. And unless and until it does, I'm going to be good with just this because I really enjoy being with her.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because it worked before, and it worked okay before. So I have to go back to that, and not trying to quell my feelings, mind you. I don't want to do that. I've been there before, and I don't want to deny it, but I also have to see if I can revisit that without me faking it to make it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are your feelings. But your feelings, if they're going to crowd her and make her uncomfortable and scare her, then you're not being smart about it. It's not about lying. It's not about I have to be authentic about how I feel. That's crap. Because to me, you are authentic with yourself. You know how you feel. You'd like it to be more. But that's not in the cards for her at this point. It may never be. But the relationship is special, and I enjoy it, and I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
Yeah. No, I thank you for giving me the time and giving me a different perspective on all this. Appreciate it. I appreciate your show also because I think it's very helpful, not only for what you share with me today, but to those also that will reach out to you or listen.
Well, thanks a lot, Gary. I do like to be able to be helpful to people, and hopefully I was helpful to you. It seems like
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for the phone call. You take care.
Well, take care.
Bye-bye. So that's how the show works, folks. It's if you've got something that you'd like to talk to me about, the number's 203-336-9756. And I have about 10 more minutes or so. So I've got time for another call. If you want to call, I don't wait. This is the time you need to call if you want actually for me to be able to give you some time and try and be helpful to you. So again, 336 9756. And I'll wait a second and see if anybody else wants to call. Again, 203 336 9756. And if you have something you'd like some help with, then now is a great time to call. So give me a call. There you go. Thank you. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, this is Zach out of West Haven.
Hi, Zach. Thanks for calling.
I'm just anxious in general. That's all I'm feeling lately, especially with today's announcement, if you will.
Yep. Anything that you know, Zach, that helps you? I mean, if you feel anxious in general, my sense is that this is something that comes up pretty frequent for you.
Oh, absolutely not. This is quite the outlier.
So this is strange for you to feel anxious. Is that what you're saying?
Not strange, but maybe unfamiliar.
Okay. Certainly everybody feels anxious at different times. So if you felt anxious before, just to check in with you, is there anything that you've done in the past that you know that helps you to feel less anxious when you felt this way? Any history with anything else?
I'm a real big escapist. I find my solace in like whatever fantasy I can kind of jump into, movies, games, music, stuff like that.
Okay, so if you can divert your energy and focus on something that's enjoyable to you, that lessens the anxiety, at least for a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And so is there something that you can think of today that might be useful to do, given how you're feeling?
Well, unfortunately, a good portion of my day is going to be spent driving. I'm a bit of a delivery guy, so I'm just going to try my very best to keep it zen while I'm on the road today.
So
listening WPKN, of course.
There you go. So part of the way I think about changing feelings, there's three things I think about in terms of changing feelings. One is, can I just get rid of the anxiety? I mean, can I really just somehow think about why I'm anxious? What's causing me to feel anxious? Again, it's part of a system that's designed to protect us. So you're not alone. I mean, I'm certain that somewhere around 45% of the country, I guess, or something like that, is feeling pretty anxious too today. It's pretty normal, right? With an election of this consequence. So that you're not alone. So that's part of it. The second thing is there's not much you're going to do to impact that in any way. So the anxiety is going to continue to be there with you until you find some way inside yourself to cause it to be reduced somehow. And so while you're driving, it sounds like you can't do the things that normally work for you. You shouldn't be doing anything like any of the gaming while you're driving or whatever it might be, right? So, of course,
absolutely
right. So your focus is on the drive and whatever. So when you're driving, you're listening to PKN, you listen to my show, you're listening to the music that's going to follow. And so hopefully there's songs that divert your attention to things that somewhat are enjoyable, something that's familiar, something that's new that you like. So there's those kinds of things that are just structured into just listening to a radio program or a radio station that you like. That's part of it. The other part is, what do you say to yourself when you're anxious? Is there something that you can say? Can you change the narrative somehow? Can you say, whatever it is you're saying to yourself about what just happened, can you change it up at all? Is there any way for you to make it feel like there's less reasons to be so anxious? I mean, right now, all we know is the person that a lot of people voted for got in, but the person that also a lot of people voted for didn't win. And so however you're feeling about that, can you somehow learn in the best way possible to say to yourself, hey, I know it's not necessarily what I wanted, but I'm capable, I'm lovable, I'm confident, and I'm going to be okay. And the people I care about, I'm going to help them be okay. Is there anything that makes any sense that you could be saying to yourself about how you feel about you and your circumstances and the people around you that's going to help you to feel a little bit better about what's happening?
I mean, all things are temporary, right?
Right. That's one of the things you can say to yourself. I mean, We had 4 years with this guy. We had 4 years with another guy. And now we had 4 years with this guy again. Yeah. But I also think that I think it isn't about who the guy is that's in that office as much as it is, how am I going to deal with it? Am I okay?
Me, everyone around me. I mean, the system itself, too, you know, I don't want an erosion of whatever rights that we've had. I mean, backsliding is kind of indicative of a fascist environment, too, you know, losing rights and all that. I just hate to see it.
Well, we until you see it, it's just a thought, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, part of this is, I know a lot of people said things like that, but I also know that there were a lot of things said by both sides that weren't necessarily going to happen.
Of course. I mean, politicians are 90% talk at the end of the day anyway, right?
Right. So if you can say to yourself, I'm worried about this stuff, but I'm going to be okay. And also, I don't really know if that's what's going to happen. And if it does happen, if we start to see some erosion of things that I care about, is there some way to get involved? Is there some way to become part of the solution instead of just watching the problem fester and build? I mean, one of the things that I did for some time I got involved was this group called No Labels, which was trying to find some way to bring people together for a unity ticket. Didn't work out. I was very disappointed with that. But I haven't given up on the idea that is still ways to influence what happens. I don't assume that, at least in this country, that somebody can just do things and I have no ability to influence them. I always like to think I have some ability to influence at least what happens to me and the people I care about, at least at that level, and maybe even more. But then I figure out, well, what are those things? What makes me feel good to get involved in? So I feel like I'm not just standing by and letting it happen. I'm actually engaged in doing things that I think are meaningful and make a difference. But mostly, I think at the level that you're talking about, the initial thought is, look, there's a lot of things people said. I listen to a lot of media and a lot of different, whatever it is you listen to or read, say things to me that are scary. But let me see if they actually play out the way they were said, because I think some of it at least was exaggerated. And so,
tremendous amount, I'm sure.
So, and I think, again, on both sides. So I think it's more, am I going to be okay? And that hopefully, if you keep thinking about, you've survived the first 4 years, you survived the last 4 years, maybe a few things change that you don't like, maybe a few things change that you do like. I mean, lots of things are possible going forward. As I was saying earlier in the show, I don't know if you're listening, but it used to be that when somebody got elected, they got like a honeymoon. That never happened with President Trump for some reason. So maybe, I doubt there's any honeymoon coming here, but hopefully there's some of the things he said, at least to me, seem like they'd be good things. Some of the things people said about him seem really scary. But I'm waiting to see how it plays out. I'm trying not to feel anxious about it, even though I feel some of that myself. But I'm just feeling like I'm going to survive. I'm going to help my family and my people I care about survive. I'm doing this show to help you and everybody else that's listening to survive. So it's what can you do that's going to make a difference.
Well, I do think that's about the long and short of it then, huh?
I don't know if there's anything specific. I think, again, if you listen to PKN, you're going to enjoy a lot of the music, I assume. And when you get home, you're going to do some of the things that alleviate the stress or anxiety that you feel with whether it's gaming or whatever it might be. So I think you've got some strategies that aren't available to you while you're driving around today. But if you can change the self-talk to say, look, I'm okay. I'm gonna survive. Like you said, I think you said, it's 4 more years, and I'll be here at the end of it, and I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it just with some hope that it actually isn't as bad as people said it was going to be, and maybe there's a few things I even like that come out of this. So, so. That's about the best I think. That's why I was asking, does anybody else have any ideas around this? But I think it's the self-talk. It's the things we feel we can do to make life better. I mean, when I feel like there's something happening that I'm upset about, I find sometimes it's useful to go out and volunteer and help somebody that's got greater need than I'll ever have, and do something for others, because that always feels really good to me. So maybe that's helpful too.
I think it is. I think it is, and I think you've really given me quite a bit to think about for my next few miles.
Okay. Thanks for the phone call. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you picking up for me, man. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
You too, then. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Okay, so I talked about my callers. So the last thing I want to just tell you before my show ends, which is coming up in just a moment, is that there is something going on right now with caretaking, and I got asked to write about it, and I got asked to write about what I've learned about the role of emotions that has to do with caretaking. And if anybody has an interest in it, it's going to be in a newsletter that gets published November 12th. So I think it'll be out, I guess, maybe one day before I come back in. So I will talk about it again when I come back in next week, because I'm here next week. And if you're interested, you can email me and I'll send you a link to it. And you can get to see what I think is important to understand about the emotions involved when you're on the need for more care, because that's really emotionally challenging, is when you're losing some of your abilities and you find yourself becoming dependent on others when you've been independent all your life. And then secondly, when you find yourself being the caregiver, and it wasn't something necessarily you signed up for, but you actually did when you said for better or for worse, at least in terms of marriage and so forth. But even if it's somebody else, that's it.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.